This is a tale of wizards, magic, murder and monsters. It takes place long ago on an island with no name in the middle of a great sea. If you were brave or foolish enough to sail close to the island, you would think that nobody lived there. You would be wrong. For in the heart of the jungle, at the top of a mountain, is a cave. And in the cave, an old man called Prospero and his beautiful young daughter Miranda have lived happily for 12 years. They weren't born here. Oh no. 12 years ago, to the day, they were sent to sea, deliberately, in an old boat full of holes and with no sails. They were meant to die. Miranda was only 3. Prospero cried as he held her in his arms. Who would want to murder an old man and his little girl? Who could be so evil? Well, as it happens, the very people responsible are on a ship sailing past the island with no name right now. They've been to a wedding in Africa and they're going home to Italy. They think. It is night. In the cave, Miranda is asleep. But Prospero stands outside, staring at that ship. He wears a cloak which shimmers and sparks with light. In one hand, he holds a great leather-bound book. In the other, he grips a wooden staff. With a deep breath, he raises the staff as if to draw upon the sky itself. Instantly, a jagged bolt of lightning courses through the air and cracks into the ocean. He sweeps the staff around his head and boiling storm clouds explode from nowhere and blacken the stars. He whistles, and a living thing, a spinning, mischievous sprite, cartwheels through the air and hovers in front of him.
Ariel, are you ready?
Master, their ship is trapped in the web. There is no escape.
Time for me to teach them a lesson. Time for you to do your stuff.
Yes! At last! Sprites to the rigging! Come on, Sprites! Just what lesson are you teaching them, Master?
Never, ever mess with wizards.
The lightning and the thunder rage all through the night. Eventually, the terrible din wakes Miranda. She is not pleased with her father, especially when she spies the passengers far below leaping into the heaving sea, scared out of their wits. Prospero clicks his fingers. The storm stops. He sighs. Time I told you just what's going on, he says to her. And being the kind of wizard that likes details, this takes him the rest of the night. It turns out that Prospero's not just a wizard. He's also a duke. The Duke of Milan. At least he was, until his brother Antonio took over. Antonio borrowed a neighbouring king's army, stormed the Duke's palace, and ordered Prospero and his daughter to be thrown in a boat and lost at sea. It was goodbye Duke Prospero, hello Duke Antonio. Miranda is pretty surprised at this story. She thought they'd always lived in a cave. But hang on, she says. How come if you're really a duke, you're also a wizard? Aha, says Prospero. My old friend Gonzalo threw my science books into the boat as we were leaving. 12 years of reading them from cover to cover, and now I know pretty much everything about everything, including being a top magician. Since when did top magicians start sinking ships for fun? Accuses Miranda. Prospero explains that down there in the boat are all his enemies from Milan and Naples, including his brother Antonio. What are you going to do with them? Miranda asks. Prospero tells her he hasn't decided yet, but whatever it is, they deserve it. With that, he conjures a spell and puts her back to sleep, just as Ariel flies in with a very important message.
Master, the ship is hidden in the harbour. The crew are all fast asleep in the hold.
And the passengers?
Split up round the island, just as you ordered.
Excellent.
I'll be off then. It's been nice working for you.
Not quite yet, Ariel.
But boss, you said this was to be my last job.
This job is not over yet. Dawn's coming up. I want you to get down on the beach and start the island music going.
Okay. And then you'll let me go?
Soon, Ariel.
Promise?
I promise.
Cross your heart?
Don't push your luck, Ariel, unless you want to wake up back in that tree trunk where I first found you.
Any particular tune you wanted? Or shall I choose, Master? I'm leaving, I'm away, I'm out of here.
In the morning sun, the island with no name is a beautiful, sweet-smelling, music-filled place. But the miserable survivors of the shipwreck don't notice that as they crawl onto the beach. Ariel has done his job well, landing them all very deliberately on different parts of the island. Prospero slips on his invisibility cloak, yes, really, and joins Ariel in a morning inspection of his catch. First up, the courtiers. They've only been on dry land 5 minutes and already they're bickering about who's in charge. Top of the heap, King Alonso of Naples. He's the villain who lent his army to Antonio so he could steal Prospero's kingdom. Does he regret it? Not a bit. So why is he looking miserable? Because his only son Ferdinand, a bit of a wimp it has to be said, seems to be dead, drowned in the shipwreck. Just behind King Alonso is his brother Sebastian. Now, he's miserable because he's always wanted to be King of Naples. Next to Sebastian is his mate Antonio. And we know about Antonio, don't we? Prospero's brother, the one who stole his dukedom. A cooler, nastier, more ruthless man in tights could not be imagined. Just behind him, there's old white-haired Gonzalo. He's nice enough. Remember, he gave Prospero his books all those years ago. But really, he does love the sound of his own voice. Prospero inspects them carefully, coldly. Who else did we catch? Take a look, says Ariel, and off they go to another beach. There on the sand, snoring, is an ugly young man in a jester's outfit. That's Trinculo, says Ariel. And what's that? Asks Prospero, pointing to another snoring figure wrapped around a beer barrel which goes floating past on the tide. That's his mate Stefano, says Ariel. Never heard of them, says Prospero. They'll have to look after themselves. Where's Ferdinand? This way, says Ariel, and they whiz themselves to the far side of the island. There, sitting under a tree, snuffling, is the young Prince of Naples, Ferdinand.
I really can't stand snuffling. What's wrong with him?
He thinks his father's dead. Fully 5 fathoms under the sea.
I didn't notice much snuffling when they sent me off on a boat all those years ago.
I don't think you can blame Ferdinand. He was only 3 at the time.
I'll blame who I like. Now, you get down there and put him through the ringer a bit.
The ringer?
That's right. I want to see him really cry.
I thought you were a good wizard.
Wizard is as wizard does. Now, do your stuff. Then, take him up to the cave. I have a little plan to work on.
While Ariel is leading Ferdinand up to the cave, the courtiers are clumping round the island, getting more fed up by the minute. They're hungry, scared, exhausted. Prospero, still of course in his invisibility cloak, flings a sleeping spell at them. But he lets Antonio and Sebastian stay awake. Within minutes, Antonio's up to his evil ways again. Sebastian, wouldn't you like to be King of Naples? Sebastian, if Alonso had a little accident, wouldn't you be King of Naples? Well, actually, no, that's not strictly true, says Sebastian. Because if the king had a little accident, then his son Ferdinand would inherit the throne, not me. Antonio rolls his eyes. But Ferdinand's not here, is he? Ferdinand's drowned, hasn't he? Sebastian's a little slow on the uptake, so Antonio spells it out. King Alonso is fast asleep. So's boring old Gonzalo. If they happen to die tonight, then Sebastian will be king. Sebastian's not sure, but on reflection, bumping off Prospero didn't do Antonio any harm, so he moves closer. How would we do it? He asks. Antonio's eyes glint. From beneath his cloak, he removes a leather case. Come, sit here. Open the case. Oh. Does your heart not leap at the very sight of it? A blade to die for, no? Touch the blade, Sebastian. Feel the metal. Ow! Oh, Toledo steel. King Alonso, Gonzalo, and their minions are fast asleep. Sebastian and Antonio's knives glint in the sun. They are stepping forward to commit the murders, when Ariel whooshes in and whispers in old Gonzalo's ear. Gonzalo wakes up and shouts, "Save the king! Save the king!" The king splutters awake too. What's going on? And why the knives, Antonio? Antonio is a quick thinker. Bad guys tend to be. "Lions," he cries. "That's right, a whole herd of them," shouts Sebastian. "Monsters too, coming to attack the king," says Antonio. "And an earthquake." "I think," adds Sebastian. The courtiers look at each other and fall for it. Every last lie. They pat Antonio and Sebastian on the back, then go deeper into the island to look for Ferdinand. Meanwhile, remember the jester Trinculo and his mate Stefano? On the other side of the island, they're getting into their own trouble. Stefano floated ashore on a barrel full of wine. He and Trinculo have already drunk half of it. If they were stupid before, they're stupid and stupider now. They've made friends with Caliban, who's another of Prospero's magical servants. Trouble is, Caliban's half sea monster and half man, and he's not the happiest of creatures. He doesn't like himself much, and he likes Prospero even less. He thinks these two idiots are going to be his best friends, especially when they promise to get rid of Prospero. You see what's going on? Everyone who lands on this magical island reveals who they really are, deep down inside. But they don't know that Prospero is watching their every move.
Right, here's what we're gonna do then. Prospero sleeps every afternoon, up in his cave. So, first we nick his magic book, then we nick his staff. Then we bonk him on the head. Wallop!
You may smell like a donkey's bottom, Caliban, but I do believe you have potential. We shall take over the island, and I'll be king. I love it.
What about Miranda? What do we do with her?
I shall marry her, I think.
Very nice.
And what about all his spirit servants?
Wallop, wallop, wallop.
Ah, I love you, my master.
King Stefano. Ho, ho. I feel a song coming on. We're off to kill the wizard, we're off to kill the wizard, na 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 na, oh, na 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 na.
Ah, the island with no name. Prospero up on his mountain top, magicking his socks off. Ariel scooting round casting spells. Caliban and his two new friends plotting revolution. The courtiers wandering lost in the jungle, not knowing they've got a couple of murderers in their midst. And Ferdinand. Dear, sweet Ferdinand. Remember Ariel led him up to the cave? Well, there he met beautiful Miranda. And what was the first thing he did? He fell in love. Poor thing. First sight, bowled over, quivering wreck, legs of jelly. And Miranda? She fell in love with him too. Same symptoms, though maybe not the jelly, which isn't very ladylike. Perhaps it's because Ferdinand is quite a handsome young lad. Perhaps it's because she's never seen a man in her life before, apart from her dad, of course. Probably it's because Prospero sprinkled love powder over the two of them. You see, Prospero, like all magicians, just can't help meddling. He wants the two of them to get together. All part of his cunning plan. But not too quickly, mind. First of all, he wants Ferdinand to pass a few tests. So, he binds up Ferdinand in chains and gives him Caliban's job of chopping wood. As it happens, Ferdinand loves chopping wood, especially with Miranda sitting on a rock watching him being all manly.
This wood's very nice.
I know.
Very, choppable.
You're chopping it wonderfully, fantastically.
Do you think so?
Best I've ever seen.
Really? You're not just saying that?
Gosh, no. I mean, just look at that bit. It's amazing.
It is rather good, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
Not as beautiful as you.
Gosh.
You're so beautiful. I could sing a song about you.
Wow.
I mean, a bit of wood's just a bit of wood, isn't it? Even a good bit's never going to amount to much more in life than being a chair or a table. Or a cricket bat, maybe. On a good day. But wood never makes me want to sing. Whereas you...
Yes?
You make me want to sing, Miranda.
Well, go on then. This rock's beginning to hurt my bottom. Down in the jungle, King Alonso and the courtiers have given up hope of finding Ferdinand. Most of them are moping. Antonio and Sebastian are plotting murder. Again, big surprise. Prospero walks invisible among them, then nods to Ariel. Immediately, wild animals roar and crash through the trees. The courtiers panic and run about. More terrible noises. Then silence. Before they have time to recover, Prospero clicks his fingers and a massive banquet appears, tables piled high with everyone's favourite food. The starving courtiers rush to the tables. But then, whoosh, Ariel appears like a terrible monster and flies all around them. Then he waves his giant wings over the meal and it disappears. Oh dear, I am enjoying this, says Prospero, as the courtiers run everywhere, shrieking in terror. Finally, Ariel floats above Alonso, Antonio and Sebastian and tells them they are being punished by the gods for all the terrible things they've done. In horror, the three of them run off into the jungle. Very nicely done, says Prospero. Who's next? The drunks, says Ariel, and with a whiz, the magician and his assistant disappear. Only to reappear by the cave. Just in time to catch Caliban, Trinculo and Stefano. They're nicking Prospero's spare magician's clothes and heading off with big sticks to kill him. Do your stuff, Ariel, says Prospero. So Ariel conjures up a pack of demon dogs and chases them away into the jungle too. Alone now, Prospero sits and shakes his head. Human beings. Leave them alone on an island for a day, and look what they get up to, he thinks. But should he punish them, or have they learnt their lesson? Is it time to forget all this magician nonsense? Is it time to forgive and forget? Prospero looks far out to sea and ponders these questions. But the answer doesn't lie out at sea. It lies within himself. Prospero sits in his invisibility cloak and watches the miserable courtiers, huddled together weeping under a tree. No matter how evil they once were, it seems they genuinely have repented. He decides he must forgive them. He summons Ariel, tells him to find Caliban and the drunks and bring them to the beach. Next, he must go to the ship and release all the sailors from their spell. Will I then be free? Asks Ariel. Very soon, dear spirit, says Prospero. Very soon. With a joyful whoosh, Ariel's gone. Prospero now removes his cloak and hurls it into the air. It disappears. He takes his magic book and closes it. It disappears too. Finally, he grasps his magic staff and breaks it across his knee. A crack of lightning, and he steps forward, no longer Prospero the magician, but once again Prospero, Duke of Milan. The courtiers are amazed to see him. Alonso begs his forgiveness, which is given. If only my dear son Ferdinand were still alive, says Alonso. At which point, arm in arm, Ferdinand and Miranda emerge onto the beach. And they're not just alive, says Prospero. They have my permission to marry too. Well, as you can expect, there are all kinds of hugs and kisses and explanations. Now Caliban, Trinculo and Stefano appear. Miserable, hungover, and finally, round the point and heading for the beach comes the lost ship. Its crew fit and healthy, and the sails looking better even than when they left port.
Nicely done, Ariel. Nicely done.
Is that all, Master? Am I?
Yes, Ariel, you are free. Your work is over, and so is mine. It is time for me, time for us all, to return to our old lives and make them new.
The ship's boats pull up on the shore, and the castaways climb aboard. Caliban, now free just like Ariel, scratches his head and waves them off. Soon the ship is ready to leave. The anchors are pulled aboard, the wind fills the sails, and the island with no name grows smaller on the horizon. They're going home.